Hi, my name is Jana, and
Hey, I'm Danny.
today we want to talk about the most important part of the Beam community, actually the people. Unfortunately, not everyone knows that this community exists, how and where to start learning Beam, how to contribute, and today we're going to discuss all these questions. My story with Beam started a few years ago when I got accepted into the project with an amazing client. Unfortunately, I'm still the only person in my company who has the opportunity to work with Beam and Dataflow. And sometimes, let's say, I feel a bit lonely. And when I started learning Beam, I couldn't find any interesting hands-on projects. And that's why I started creating my own projects, sharing them on Medium page. And the most interesting part is that I started getting messages from people who also felt the same way, a little bit lost, a little bit lonely. They wanted to connect, to discuss Beam technical issues, some ideas for the projects. And that's how we came up with this idea for this presentation. We want to have everything in one place for current and future Beam users and community members. But first, let me show you some results from the survey. As you probably know, we sent survey to Beam College participants, and we wanted to ask them how we feel about the community, how we see the future of the community, and around 50 people replied. Thank you so much for your time. I really hope next time will be more. So first, we asked people about resources to learn and practice Beam. And the majority said they're using documentation, which is absolutely perfect. But another part said they need more hands-on projects with Beam. So just think about it. If you have any ideas for these kind of projects, definitely maybe it's time to share your knowledge. I will show you some examples later. So now let's talk about resources. So definitely, if you're on Google Cloud, you know Cloud Skills Boost page. That's an amazing page with a lot of courses and especially labs. And in total, you can get access to over 52 hours of materials related to Beam and Dataflow. And if your company is a partner of Google, you can get access to all of this for free. So don't miss this opportunity. Of course, Beam docs will be always the main source of knowledge. Also, you can check GitHub repo of Apache Beam, where you can find different kind of solutions and examples of the code. And from my experience, if you want to pass Google Cloud Associate Data Practitioner and Professional Data Engineer exams, you need to know Beam and Dataflow. I remember I received a few questions in both of these exams about Beam and Dataflow boards. So before going to the exam, definitely check docs. So another question was about contributions. We actually asked people if they are interested in contributing, and the majority said yes, of course. And then we asked people, what stops you from contributing now? And the majority said they're not sure where to begin and how to find suitable opportunities for contributions. So if you don't know where to begin and where to start, you can go to the main Apache Beam page, where is the section Contribute, and where you can find a lot of different information how you can do that. And believe me, you don't have to be a pro at ML if you want to contribute. If you want to fix documentation, that's fine. If you want to create article or project, that's even better. If you want to concentrate only on technical contributions, of course, it's possible, yes. So you can check Beam GitHub issues for some ideas and inspiration. And here I want to show you some examples, let's say, of my contributions. To be honest, when I published these articles, I didn't think I was contributing. I just wanted to share my knowledge. So I usually have some data engineering projects on GCP because I work with GCP and I learn GCP. And usually it's ETL pipelines with services like Dataflow, Composer, and so on. Also, I have a few articles on Beam College. And when you look at it, probably it doesn't look too complicated for you. But what if I tell you that all these articles related to Beam received over 10,000 views? So for me, it's a clear sign that people want to read more about Beam and people want to have more hands-on projects with Beam. So again, think about it. If you have any ideas, share your knowledge. And if you, for example, I publish everything in Google Cloud Community on Medium. We have over, I think, 65,000 followers. So if you publish something related to Google Cloud, definitely Google engineers will see your work. And maybe your articles will appear in some newsletters. So this happened to me twice. My articles appeared in Google Cloud Innovators newsletter, and one was related to streaming Dataflow pipeline. So again, another opportunity to promote Beam technology and more attention and get more attention to your work. Also, I have interview on data flow on PeerSpot. What is interesting is that this community has over 80,000 users. Of course, I mentioned Beam College and Beam Summit in that interview. And if you want to share your experience, how you use Beam or data flow on your project or in your company, you can reach out to the community and we can help you with the case study. And this case study will be published on the main Apache Beam page. If you're not a fan of all these articles and so on, you want to concentrate only on technical contributions, check Google Summer of Code. It's probably too late to register for this summer, but definitely check it next year. But this year and this summer, there was a section for Beam, and you could have Danny or XQ as your mentors. I think that's an amazing opportunity to learn something new and contribute to the project. And now Danny will cover the second part of the presentation.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of getting started with code or code-adjacent contributions. So as Jana covered, there's a ton of different ways to contribute, but this is kind of where my background and expertise lies mostly, I guess. So when we think about getting started with really any open source project, there's kind of an easy way and a hard way. The easy way is find a place where other people are investing, and that can look like a lot of different things. Within Beam, I think like looking at the Beam 3.0 pillars that we talked about this morning is a great way, but also just like check out the changelog. Look for these like good first issues that people flag. If you search for that tag on GitHub, that's a good place to find kind of starting places. And conversely, if you are somebody who has something that they are already working on and you have some of these things fall out, that's a great way to kind of find people to come and work with you. There's not, within open source projects, there's not like a single place to come say, hey, I mean, I guess you can show up on the dev list and ask, but really there's a bunch of different places to kind of get plugged in. And I think the easiest place to get started is just like, what are other people interested in where I can contribute? The hard mode, which is also really, really valuable, is saying, hey, I care about this thing a lot. I want to go make that thing happen. It's, I think, harder because there's not somebody who is kind of already doing the thing, so the path is usually less well lit. But it can be really, really useful. If you care about this new I/O that nobody else seems to be interested in, that's like a pretty common one within Beam. Or you want to introduce this new transform. I think it's a great place to get started. I'd say especially if you're using Beam and you find this gap, this is kind of a great place to consider plugging in. I still might consider picking up like a good first issue as your first entrance because it can be hard. And I'd also recommend reaching out to folks on the dev list if you're going to do something like this. The biggest piece of advice I can give you as you're starting to contribute is no matter what you do, take a bunch of notes and contribute them back to the Beam dev list. I am pretty convinced within the first year I was like involved with Beam, this was the most valuable thing that I did and still is like one of the more valuable things. I think like I've always appreciated when people just say, hey, here were all the things that were broken when I was trying to get started, or here are the things that were great. That's also motivating and helpful. So I would really recommend kind of taking copious notes and giving them back to the community. It's also a great way to kind of signal good intent to whatever community you're trying to join, not just Beam, but certainly within a Beam context of like, hey, I'm here, I want to try to help. And I think you're more likely to find people who are going to jump in and try to help you fix all of those things that you found. Just pointing to problems can sometimes feel like discouraging, but it is actually really, really useful too. If you go in and fix them, that's even better, but don't let that be a barrier that stops you from kind of giving your initial thoughts when you enter into the project. I also have this release candidate vote here. I didn't really know where to put this in the presentation, but a great way to get started with kind of contributing to the Beam community is validating our releases. So this is just kind of trying out Beam with some use case that you think is interesting and sharing your thoughts with the community. This is, again, like a really useful place to get started. You'll note there's a theme like there's a bunch of different kind of random places to get started, and you just kind of pick whatever is most interesting to you. There's not like one single path here. But I think the biggest thing is just like pick something and do it. The last thing I'll talk about here is kind of how the Beam project is governed. You don't need to know any of this to kind of start contributing to Beam. It's not going to be relevant to most people who contribute to Beam beyond maybe people will throw out these terms. But within Beam, there's, and really all Apache projects, there's 3 roles that you really need to know about. One is a contributor, and that is anybody who contributes to Beam. I think on some level, just by being here, you are a Beam contributor because you're contributing to the community. And you know, I think like this is really valuable and a place where we can kind of talk about ideas. Very broad definition, but the second level is a committer. And a committer is basically just somebody who has been around the project for a while, who the kind of PMC, which I'll cover in a minute, trusts to commit code to Beam. Committers are not inherently people who do commit code, but it's basically somebody who we kind of trust to do right by the project is kind of a way to think about it. A lot of people, when they join the project, might think like, hey, I have a goal of eventually becoming a committer. And I think it's like a good goal if you're looking for a milestone. But it's also not really a necessary goal. And coming in and saying, I want to fix this thing is often just as good or better. And then the last kind of role you'll hear people talk about is the PMC. And the PMC is responsible for oversight of the project. The biggest thing that I think that entails is being responsible for approving releases that go out into the world. But there's also some other project governance that goes on. There's not like a ton of special privileges that come with that. It's mostly just like a couple extra things that you kind of contribute to help the project keep running. And so I call these out just as like, you'll see them used a lot in the project, and it's maybe useful to understand some of the terminology. And also, if you're interested in kind of getting involved in that way, it's good to have kind of well-defined steps that you can take within the project. The last thing I'll call out and really just emphasize before I pass it back to Jana is the Google Summer of Code is a really great entry point. I've gotten to be a mentor for Google Summer of Code the last couple of years, and I think it's one of the best ways I've seen for people to get involved with open source in general. So if you are, I think it's a college student or also like early in your career, it is a really good place to kind of get started with Beam or really with open source in general. And you get paired with a mentor for the summer. You have a project that you get to work on. And you get a stipend too, so that's nice always. So with that said, I will pass back to Jana for the last part.
Thanks. Okay, so let's come back to the survey. We also had a few questions about the future of the community. At first, we asked if people would be interested in taking Apache Beam certification exam. And the majority said maybe. As you can see, Beam is not very happy about your decision, but anyway. So we had some examples in other open source communities when they have specific certifications to their technologies, and these exams are quite popular because it's a clear sign for your current and future client that you can work with this technology. So, and I'm sure that the data engineers who work with, for example, Google Cloud and Dataflow would be interested in this exam for sure. Another thing was about meetups, question about meetups. So we could have maybe online calls or maybe meetups in person. So I found 2 groups online, one in Brussels, another one in Zurich. Unfortunately, they are not active anymore. So maybe we could come back to this kind of format and have these calls at least. So again, another just example, other open source communities have, for example, monthly calls, and these calls are quite popular. And people there discuss new features, bugs, new releases, having interviews, discussing use cases, and overall having fun, let's say. And actually, these calls create some kind of community feeling. So I think that's great. We can think about this cause. And the last question was about ambassador programs. So these people, ambassadors, they could represent community, represent technology, speak about Beam, promote Beam everywhere, create articles and projects and so on. So maybe we can also think about this program and so on. And the last thing what I want to show you is the comments from the survey. And the last one is my favorite. How can we become more involved? So I really hope that after this presentation, you will have a clear idea how to engage with the community and how to contribute to the project. And again, if you have any ideas about contributions and so on, reach out to the community and we will help you. And we need you. So definitely, thank you so much for your time and attention.